Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's a subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units.
Police, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company puts the brake on a personal injury claim from a car full of passengers.
They were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year.
A boat enthusiast gets into deep water with his claim.
The wardens of Lake Windermere had to actually rescue him on several occasions.
And the IFED team discover a large stash of cash.
It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something you usually come across in a normal house search.
London's iconic red buses have changed a lot since the early days of horse-drawn wagons. They're now fast, efficient and high-tech. And London is chock-a-block full of them.
In London, operating on behalf of TfL, there's over 7,600 buses. And there are 2.4 billion passenger journeys a year.
Abellio operates 600 of these buses, and out of a whopping 140 million passenger journeys, the vast majority run smoothly. But on the rare occasion there is an accident, Abellio investigates any insurance claims thoroughly, as they did with one received in July 2009.
The claim came off the back of our 350 service, which runs from Hayes Station up to Heathrow. In the summer, 11 o'clock at night, our vehicle was trying to park on the bus stand, and there was a VW Charan taxi cab that was just in front of the bus stand, and our bus clipped it as it was parking.
Despite only nudging the car, it wasn't long before Abellio were contacted by its occupants.
We received in claims from 5 individuals. These claimants were claiming for back and neck injuries of a whiplash-type nature, but they were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year. That was supposedly backed up by medical evidence. All in all, this mounted up to £27,000 worth of claim against us.
Hang on. That seems a lot of money for a minor incident. Alan's team began investigating the claim.
When the claim came in, we knew something was wrong.
As part of their investigations, Alan's team used state-of-the-art technology.
We've got kit on our buses that enables us to tell the G-forces of any incident.
The G-force was measured as extremely low, meaning there must have been very little contact between the bus and the taxi.
The slow impact nature of this incident, there wasn't going to be psychological trauma, there wasn't going to be back and neck injuries.
Fortunately, on Abellio's buses, there are up to 16 CCTV cameras covering both the inside and outside of each bus. Alan and his team scrutinised the footage from the date in question, only to discover something very surprising.
When we looked at the CCTV, we could see that only the driver was in the cab. In fact, we see the driver get out of the cab, lock it, and go and walk to our driver.
And that looks like a suspiciously empty car to me.
Clearly, the claimants weren't present at the time of the incident.
It became apparent to Alan that the insurance claim was simply a pack of lies.
As a result of this, we immediately contacted the police as part of Operation Catcher.
Operation Catcher is a department within the Metropolitan Police that hunt down organised insurance fraudsters.
If we weren't on top of this and we simply accepted it, first of all, it would snowball and get thoroughly out of hand. And if we were paying off claims like this, not only would fares go up, bus companies would go out of business, and in the end you wouldn't have a public transport system. So there is only one choice for the bus operators, and that's to take a very robust approach and work hand in glove with the police.
Alan and his team now had enough evidence for the claimants to be brought to book.
The individuals were taken to court and found guilty of fraud. 3 individuals received 9 months suspended sentence and 200 hours community service, as well as having to pay costs. The driver, who was at least there at the time, received a 12-month suspended sentence and 300 hours community service, as well as paying costs.
The dodgy claimants were banged to rights, and justice was served. But for Alan, it was a bittersweet victory.
While they were found guilty of fraud, which was satisfactory, I would hope that they would actually receive more robust sentences, because they're premeditated. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It takes time to think about putting in such a claim, and they were trying to extort nearly £30,000 from the company.
But it's not just the shifty claimants that Alan has a problem with, it's those who represent them as well.
I think what would help it is if third-party solicitors actually looked at the credibility of claims that come to them. If you looked at this incident and the circumstances of a slow-speed collision, to claim psychological trauma that would last for more than a year, to claim whiplash, back and neck injuries, just really wasn't credible.
This case was closed, but to Alan's frustration, other chancers continue to try it on with his bus company.
I don't think in any way bus companies are a soft target. Maybe some individuals out there still think that's the case. Given the technology we have, given the amount of effort we go to, and given the approach we take, which is very robust, and our working relationship with the police, anyone who still thinks that is very much mistaken.
Still to come. Police track down a stolen Mercedes in a case that drives the insurance company round the bend.
The vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
And Royal Mail encounter first-class scammers.
The total value of claims made was £25,000 and we paid out over £15,000.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. If you get caught, you're likely to get convicted, and then that is going to affect the rest of your life.
Today, IFED are cracking down on suspected travel insurance scammers. People who falsely claim for the loss or theft of luxury items, such as clothes, jewellery and electronic goods whilst away on holiday. In total, 70 officers are working with the City of London Police up and down the country. One team is led by DC Armand Taylor and head of IFED DCI Dave Wood.
It's now approaching 7 o'clock and we're about to enter the premises of one of our suspects, hopefully arrest him and search his premises looking for property that he's reported stolen.
It seems to be taking a long time for the suspect to answer the door.
Someone's got to be waking up.
Dave is growing increasingly impatient. Today's raid is the result of months of investigative work.
We're thinking it's occupied, but there's no one coming to the door.
It's not looking good. The support team may have to gain entry by force. That will soon wake up any occupants. But in the nick of time, the police spot signs of life through the letterbox.
Police, can you come to the door, please? Morning. I'm from the City London Police Insurance Fraud Team. I'm here today to speak to you regarding a claim that you've made.
Once inside, it doesn't take long to identify their rather shell-shocked target.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made. I've got to caution you, actually, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. If you don't want to mention when questioned, something too late to rely on in court. Anything you do so may be given in evidence.
Placing the suspect under immediate arrest is a crucial step in police raid protocol.
You haven't been arrested before, have you?
It appears the suspect has been caught off guard and is visibly shaken.
You're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. Alright.
Right, what you can do...
Dave Wood informs the suspect of what's going to happen.
We'll be searching top to bottom for those items you've said were stolen. If you can show us where those items are, it makes it a lot easier, and it also shows you're cooperating with us.
Did you want to help us out with the location of the items? Well, I've got a list. I've got a list in here. I've got a page.
The list is a breakdown of the luxury goods that the suspect claimed had been lost or stolen while on holiday. The suspect cooperates, and IFED commence their search.
They're similar to make and model that have been reported stolen as well, so we'll seize them.
Items can often be stashed in the most unlikely places, but when IFED are in charge, there's nowhere to hide.
We were knocking on the door for quite a while before he opened up, which makes me think, in my suspicious mind, that he may have been stashing stuff around the place, so we can't find it when we come in. So whilst you might think, why am I looking in the bathroom cabinet, that's the reason why.
Coming up, IFED find a number of items of interest,
That's going to be the camera,
including a large stash of cash.
so we'll seize that. Under the proceeds of crime, we can seize it, and then we'll do some further inquiries back at the station.
For many, insurance provides peace of mind. From the thefts of cars and laptops to damage to personal valuables and your home. John Beadle has worked in the industry for 15 years, and in his time, he's come across a few who have tried it on.
Sometimes I wonder if people think insurance companies are completely stupid.
Some of us have been there, sitting in a restaurant or a cafe, you turn round and your bag's gone. Unfortunately for one of John's customers, an impromptu visit to a restaurant ended in disaster.
This gentleman had been shopping when he decided that he would pop into a branch of a well-known restaurant chain for his piri-piri chicken for lunch, and he left his laptop by the side of the table.
The claimer was clearly gutted by his stupidity.
Losing a laptop, of course, can be very upsetting in the sense that you've got a lot, potentially, of precious information on there, so he was clearly upset.
On receipt of the claim, the insurer set about making their usual inquiries, which sparked their suspicions.
It transpired that he hadn't reported this to the restaurant itself, and indeed hadn't reported it to the police either.
They investigated further, and it transpired all wasn't what it seemed.
When we looked at the CCTV footage at the restaurant, he'd never actually even been in the premises that day, let alone with or without his laptop.
The insurer confronted the claimant with their findings, and the claimant admitted that he had in fact made a bogus claim.
We reported him to IFED, and he's ended up with a criminal record, and he will also be entered on the insurance fraud register, which will cause him difficulties in obtaining insurance cover in the future.
But this is just one of the many claimers over the years that have tried to pull the wool over John's eyes. From exaggerated home contents insurance claims to organised insurance scams. One particular chancer thought his claim would be a drop in the ocean.
We do write a lot of insurance business. We're one of the biggest marine insurers in the UK, of course, and that ranges from oil tankers to pleasure craft. One of our customers' boats that he uses on Lake Windermere was put into storage in the winter and stayed in storage for some 5 months until it was taken out in April. when he reported to us that the engine had been damaged during storage.
The claim was for water damage to an inboard motor and soft furnishings on a boat. John could understand his customer's misfortune.
This was a very unlucky policyholder who'd suffered this damage, and of course it would have cost us several £1000s to repair the engine for him.
John and his team decided to drop anchor and process the claim as quickly as possible. But it soon became clear that this claim was not above board.
On making inquiries, we found that before the vessel was put into storage for the winter, the wardens of Lake Windermere had had to actually rescue him on several occasions. On 4 occasions, they'd had to tow our policyholder's boat in because the engine had broken down. In fact, the last occasion was about 2 weeks before he took the policy out with us. On closer examine, the engine was found not to be damaged so much as suffering from wear and tear because of its age.
But this sailor really went overboard with his claim.
He also then alleged that he had actually had the engine repaired regularly, but when we interviewed the person who he said had carried out regular maintenance and repairs of the engine, he said he'd never actually done any work on it whatsoever.
For John, this claimer was simply an opportunist.
I think he knew that the engine was shot to pieces and was no good, and so thought he would take a policy out with us and wait a decent period and then make a claim, and that we wouldn't investigate it.
Unfortunately for our sailing enthusiast, his fake claim was heading for the rocks.
The outcome of this case is that we clearly didn't and aren't going to pay this claim, and we voided the policy, so this gentleman is no longer insured with us.
His claim had sunk without a trace. John and his team weren't going to be taken for a ride.
Absolutely a blatant lie, and a gentleman had thought that we would just pay up, I guess, without investigating this. People need to realise that insurance companies aren't a soft touch.
We all want to own beautiful things, and a luxury car is usually near the top of the list. So when our next claimant had her car stolen, she was understandably upset.
The original claim was for the theft of a Mercedes 180 motor vehicle.
Motor theft is a multi-million-pound business in the UK, so police take it very seriously. Luckily, the car was insured by Direct Line's sister company, Privilege. So the customer reported her vehicle stolen to the Met Police, who issued a crime report, which she then submitted with her claim.
The claim was then processed and it was subsequently paid.
So the road ahead was finally looking clearer for our customer. Her beloved car had been snatched, but the compensation meant she could park her distress, for now.
In March of the following year, 2013, the vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants of that vehicle were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
The culprits had been caught red-handed, cruising around in our claimant's beloved Mercedes. But the case was about to change gear.
As a result of the vehicle being stopped by the police, Privilege reviewed the existing claim and identified that at the time that the claimant made their claim, it was not in fact a stolen vehicle.
During questioning, police were surprised to find that the driver not only possessed a set of keys for the vehicle, but was also carrying authentic documentation, proving that they owned the car and that our claimant no longer did. But if they weren't dealing with a stolen car, what were they dealing with? Someone who didn't want to pay their congestion charge penalties.
In this case, the claimant, who lives in London, had accrued a number of unpaid congestion charges.
Each time she ignored a congestion charge, she was fined £130, and the amount owed racked up to around £4,000.
The vehicle was subsequently repossessed legally through the courts in lieu of monies owed for in respect to the congestion charges. Not content with that, the claimant reported her vehicle stolen the day it was repossessed.
Worse still, the real victims in this were the new owners of the car.
Unfortunately, the vehicle was then sold through an auction process in an effort to recoup monies.
The proud owners of the Mercedes 180 had just bought their new car at auction. Unbeknownst to them, their car had been reported stolen by its previous owner, our charge-dodging claimant.
Matters were then referred to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, where the claimant was then arrested and interviewed in respect of offences of fraud. They admitted their guilt and received a formal police caution in respect of that finding. They have since been ordered to pay monies back to Privilege.
It's hard to imagine what possessed our cavalier claimer to rack up so many fines. Perhaps her hobby is collecting penalties, or maybe she'd zoned out.
This is not an unusual type of fraudulent activity. In the current economic climate, claimants will claim for virtually anything.
This motorist clearly had a blind spot when it came to respecting the law of the roads. She deliberately deceived the police and the insurance company in a blatant attempt to benefit from a false insurance payout.
I think this is an example where insurance fraud isn't victimless. Here we have innocent members of the public driving their vehicle which they believe is theirs, when in fact the police have stopped them. So psychologically, this would have been quite distressful for those members of the public.
Royal Mail is a much-loved British institution. It's a reliable service that we benefit from every day. Their mission is to always deliver, even if the package is damaged.
We lose or damage very few items, so we're always willing to consider compensation claims when they come in. We make every effort to investigate them, and that's to say, to investigate them in terms of what may have gone wrong.
But in March 2012, one particular case sparked a large investigation when several claims from a number of different people cropped up in the Midlands area.
In this case, we'd had a number of claims. They were sending the packaging to pawnbrokers, the gold dealers, but the jewellery had gone missing.
The packages contained extremely valuable items of gold jewellery and large sums of cash. When the parcels arrived empty, it looked like they'd been opened and resealed.
Well, the total value of claims made was £25,000, and we paid out over £15,000.
Royal Mail began an internal investigation. Firstly, looking at their own postal staff to establish if the packets could have been opened while in transit. Tony's team investigated the logs of the deliveries.
We then started to look for similar names, similar addresses, and we discovered that we had a web of people, at least 4 of them, and a web of addresses, and that we had compensation claims for items going back and forth between people and between addresses.
This strongly suggested fraudulent activity. The plot thickened when Tony received a tip-off.
But we received a call from a pawnbroker's where somebody was trying to cash several cheques to the value of several £1,000s, drawn against Royal Mail. The pawnbrokers themselves were suspicious because of the size of the cheque.
The pawnbroker turned the fraudster away. However, the dodgy scammers continued to claim for parcels allegedly meddled with. This time, Royal Mail refused to pay. Meanwhile, Tony's investigation team delved deeper and began to join up the dots.
The links were obvious. It was reasonably sophisticated in that some attempt was being made to hide through the use of aliases and a web of addresses.
Tony's team had uncovered the gang's plot. They were padding out empty parcels to try and frame innocent postal workers in a bid to get rich. The investigation led to search warrants being executed at 3 addresses, and 3 individuals were arrested.
They appear to have been operating for just under 2 years, and we became aware towards the end of that period. I think in this case, one of the gang members was a career criminal. The story that was told in court, that we probably believe, is that he was putting pressure onto the others to help him. So I think one person was benefiting, 4 people at least were involved, and 3 people actually were sentenced as a result of this.
The fraudsters appeared at Nottingham Crown Court for their roles in the fraud. Lee Wally received a 10-month suspended prison sentence, and Kevin Newton was sentenced to 12 months in prison. The other fraudster, Stacey Haining, was ordered to pay over £3,500 in compensation, as well as completing a one-year community order. Tony had stamped out the scam, and the fraudsters were in a royal mess. And for any other customers contemplating making a false claim, Tony has these words of warning.
My very simple message to anyone considering this sort of fraud is don't do it. Don't do it because not only do Royal Mail investigate, but the police investigate, and most other companies now investigate. But computers make this sort of crime increasingly difficult to commit. Once you start to lay some tracks, once you start to do the same thing 2 or 3 times, we will spot you and we will catch you.
IFED have arrested a suspect in a nationwide crackdown on travel insurance fraud.
You're under suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made, alright? I can see you're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. Alright?
They are midway through a house search for items of interest.
From the bedroom so far, I found a couple of bank cards, which I'm going to seize or take notes of because they may relate to the claim that's been paid out. Some travel insurance documents that we'll look at seizing, and a camera that we believe is subject to the claim.
No area is off limits to the police. With Dave's years of experience at police raids, he offers a word of advice.
You're in a bit of a pickle here. To make the best of it is generally would be to cooperate and just tell the truth.
All of a sudden, DC Aman Taylor is called to the bedroom.
Found a quantity of cash in the bottom of the cupboard, so we'll seize that under the proceeds of crime, and then we'll look at do some further inquiries back at the station once we've got everything together and put down a plan of action on how we're going to deal with it. It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something you usually come across in a normal house search. Not sort of cash you'd expect to find during a house search.
Large sums of money, we would always seize it because you don't know where it's come from, and it's then his responsibility to explain where it's come from. That is the law in relation to money laundering and cash seizures.
The suspect is led out to the unmarked police car. It's been another success for DCI Dave Wood.
We arrived today with several objectives. The main one being was to locate and arrest our suspect, which we have done. He's been arrested for insurance fraud, and we've seized several exhibits which are relevant to that inquiry. He's now going to come back to the police station, transport provided by us, and he'll be interviewed in relation to these offences. So I am totally happy that we have mission accomplished this morning.
It's also been a good day for the wider IFED team around the country. 13 people have been arrested in today's crackdown of alleged travel insurance fraud. Officers seized thousands of pounds in jewellery, clothing and electronic items. These cases remain under investigation.